Hey there. Halloween is a really big deal for me, but one of my non-Halloween-like traditions that pop up at this time of year is the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Top 500. So, in a segment that has two names that I like to call What Pro Wrestling Has to Offer the Horror Fan That Is Not a Pro Wrestling Fan, or Alienating My Audience, let's take a trip down Wrestling Lane and see what a Halloween fan might enjoy out of pro wrestling. Shall we, sexy people? Lace up your boots and climb into the ring, because I'm going to see you on the other side, brother.
Listen to them. Children of the night. What music they make. Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
I got news for you, pal. You ain't leading but two things right now. Jack and shit. And Jack left town. I say you'll flip you. Do what? Flip you. Flip you for real.
Y'all think us folks from the country's real funny like, don't you, Jerry? Hello from you, Ma. I'm Mr. Britt. I've got to give me some education, Jerry. You ass.
Ass. Death. A bitch. Stupid bitch.
What's up, y'all? This is Dynamo Mars. All day, every day, I hang out and talk to a bunch of my dear friends in a chat room. We talk about our diets. We talk about our lives. We talk about our lunches. We talk about our jobs. We talk about politics very infrequently. But the point of the chat, what we talk about primarily, is pro wrestling. And every single day, I realize that there is one dude from that kind of peer group that is not involved in the chats. And he likes all the other stuff that we all like, all the literature, all the television, all the movies. What is it about pro wrestling that connected with these other five people but never connected with him? Is it that he's only ever seen really phony 80s wrestling? Is it that he's only ever tried to decipher the incomprehensible air quotes writing that was going on for, the most part in commercial wrestling right now? Is it, was it something that the fan base did, which is very possible? Wrestling fans are a obnoxious and cantankerous lot. Or maybe he just never found that thing to latch onto. One thing that I always point non-wrestling fans to is a company that is brought to you by exploitation maven Robert Rodriguez. And the reason I didn't forget his name, I don't know that it's fair to call him an exploitation maven, because what he does is take the things that we like about exploitation and make them to the mainstream. He's definitely part of that, lesser so than, say, his buddy Quentin Tarantino or Rob Zombie even. I like to call him a DJ filmmaker, where he takes a little of this, a little of that to make, a mix of what's going on. But his television network, the Elway Network, which is awesome, has its own wrestling company, and it's full of monsters and spies and cops and blaxploitation like characters and everything else. And the storylines are more, while not overly complex, they're more cinematic and lead more towards an exploitation bent. I highly recommend tracking down Lucha Underground. If you don't have the Elway Network, you can buy it on iTunes and I think on Amazon as a whole season 1. But season 2 blows season 1 out of the water, and I'm told that season 3 started out even stronger. But I mentioned earlier the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Top 500, and this year, complete with the worst pick for number 1 and the worst cover of all time, is the 26th edition of the PWI Top 500. I hope they at least make it to 30 years of doing this. Basically what it does in a kind of skewed, confused way, because it used to be a kayfabe listing. Now what kayfabe means is, kayfabe doesn't mean this, but to put it put it bluntly, they rated the wrestlers as if wrestling was real. Now they're kind of stuck in the middle of the world kind of knows wrestling's not real, and they don't really, they seem confused by their ranking system. Nothing illustrates that more than by having their number one Roman Reigns that looks like if Renegade and Jason Momoa had a baby and rode in on a big greasy motorcycle, you would have Roman Reigns. He is very cool look, but not super charismatic, and thus far I think only marginally talented. It doesn't seem to be as inherently good as his Samoan family. He's part of a Samoan family that has like 20 or 30 professional wrestlers over the course of history in it. But the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Top 500 is very fun for me because I am able to check out wrestlers that I don't know, or maybe able to hear about, read a little about somebody that I've only heard about, or chart the progression of someone whom I've only seen one time or whatever. But what I'm going to do is, these aren't honorable mentions because this isn't a list. These are omissions. These are people that belong in there. A couple of people that are horror-like that weren't mentioned in here are from Chikara, for starters, the Osirian Portal. They are Egyptian gods. One of them is a pharaoh. One of them is a snake god. Fire Ant was not mentioned. Basically, he is a giant... El Goro taught me how to say it on Talk About Rhythm. I can't even say anamorphic. He's a giant human ant hybrid, and complete with antennas, as well as his tag team partner, Green Ant. There's actually a lot of ants, but those are the two primary ones. And another one that I was surprised who had seemingly a good year so far is Frightmare. He is a little pumpkin demon that is not on the PWI Top 500 this year. So I'm just going to go backwards and jump around here. I'm obviously not all 500 or even 20 of them, or there's a bunch here, so I'll have to fucking fly through here. But more than I thought appeal to a horror fan or an exploitation fan or just a fan of Halloween. For instance, this isn't horror, but if you like silly sci-fi stuff, you will like a character who is a monkey went to space and came back as a man monkey, and that is Space Monkey. I got my first look at my new favorite wrestler, Space Monkey, at King of Trios Ray Velador's tournament this year. Ray Velador's basically means the king of the high flyers, and it's one of the staples of one of the greatest wrestling weekends of every single year is this extra tournament, secondary tournament that goes on, but it is not secondary seemingly in prestige because without a doubt the finals of this and at least one of the qualifiers is in the argument of stealing the show. But Space Monkey's awesome. He's got a tail. He picks lice out of your head. He, from time to time, has been known to throw poop at people, I guess. And he's basically a monkey in a spacesuit. Moving on to more scarier stuff is a character who competed in Ring of Honor's Top Prospect Trophy tournament in 2005. That is the very intimidating Punisher Martinez. This guy looks like if the lead vampire and the Shogun of Harlem had a child. He's very tall, he's very agile, and I suspect he's going to go very far in this business because of his size and agility. In fact, I'm surprised he hasn't been called up yet. I'm going to be silly another time. I don't want to say one more time, but the friendliest pro wrestler in the world, if Mil Mascaras and Mr. Belvedere had a baby, you would have Jarvis Cottonbelly. He's basically a classic butler. To put it in film things, he could be the butler from Clue. He's very British, he's very couth, and he's very polite and very mannerful, and he's got a very nice mustache on his mask. Somebody who used to be a silly character but now has turned into a bit of a demon is a character who originally was named Playa Uno of the Super Smash Brothers, but now he's an evil, he looks like Wario almost. His name is Evil Uno, and basically he's just an evil video game character that terrorizes opponents in the ring with terrible, evil video game shenanigans. More traditional characters is what's scarier than a evil wrestling doctor? And that's essentially what Dr. Wagner is. And though over the years he has flip-flopped between Rudo and Technico, he is, predominantly a lot of his career since he's taken on the Dr. Wagner thing, been evil. And that's when he's at his best, I think. Just a scrappy, throwing potatoes bad guy. So he's an evil fucking doctor. What's not to like about that? Or something that, juggalos may have ruined over the years, but is consistently scary, and now in the national Zangief, the character from Street Fighter, however you say that. This is the national attention is evil clowns. And though this clown is right now a Technico, he has been tearing up the Mexican wrestling rings for years, and that's a character named Psycho Clown. And basically he's a wrestling character that his mask resembles that of a killer clown from outer space. So cool. Fans of old exploitation love the Santo and Blue Demon films. Well, Blue Demon Jr., the son of Blue Demon, is still about fighting evil or causing evil, depending on what federation it is, with his big, giant, weird hands. But yeah, Blue Demon Jr., if you're a fan or a booker that is trying to latch on to, exploitation fans, definitely Blue Demon Jr. is a call that you can make. We mentioned Frightmare in the preamble here, and his partner is longtime contradictory babyface, and now one of the top heels of one of my favorite promotions, Chikara, and this is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. And initially I didn't like him as a heel, but now he's growing on me. It's Hallowicked. Hallowicked is basically a demon that's risen out of a pumpkin patch to go wrestle. How fucking cool is that? Now he is part of a faction that is led by a dark god, which is channeled through the malevolent cult leader and longtime Deadites foe, Ultramantis Black. And a lot of the original Chikara people, Jigsaw, Icarus, and the aforementioned Frightmare, have all joined this cult, including a trio of the Chikara originals called the Hexed Men. Get it? Like X-Men, but Hex. It's real cool stuff, and they're real evil, and they all do a good mixture of heel tactics and high impact aerial tactics, and I think that their characters are really thought out in the ring, and they do some really cool stuff. But if you are not a fan of pro wrestling, I highly recommend checking out Chikara. It's like a comic book come to life. If you are a fan of blaxploitation films, I can't imagine that the character the Mac was named. His name was shortened to the Mac for anything less than a coincidence, being a regular on El Rey Network's Lucha Underground. This dude has to be tipping the scales at 300 something and moves around the ring like a light luchador. He is super cool, and again, something interesting to latch onto if you're a fan of a certain film genre, maybe not wrestling. You like Japanese superheroes, Tiger Mask is for you. Or how about at 261, right near him, is the incredible legendary Jushin Thunder Liger, who is basically a man in a bio-armor suit that goes and wrestles, and Tiger Mask is a man that's endowed by the abilities of a tiger god and goes out and wrestles. They play that stuff down in contemporary wrestling, but that's what they fucking are. And how about the Mexican legend, used to be known as La Parka, now he just goes by L.A. Park, the chair-swingingest skeleton suit. Basically, imagine if the old skeleton decoration that your Grammy had for Halloween was on your door, and then it hit you with a steel chair. That be La Parka. You have Dragon Aztec Jr., who is a descendant of Aztec dragons from the past. You have Drago, speaking of Lucha Underground dragons, who... I want you to stop what you're doing if you're not a wrestling fan and look up Drago, wrestler. And if that mask doesn't interest you, if you're a horror fan, to check out what he looks like wrestling in that mask, then you're not gonna. I just give up. You can find a mask where he's maybe wrestling Phoenix, the legendary immortal wrestler who keeps rising from the dead like a phoenix. And maybe my favorite horror character right now who works on Lucha Underground is a skeleton ninja pro wrestler named Pentagon Jr., who goes around breaking people's arms and saying profanity in Spanglish. But he's also got some of the tightest, in-ring moveset that I've seen in a long time. Very smooth, very snug, very fun. I really enjoy him. Bray Wyatt leads the Wyatt family, which is basically, a movie like, if this was a film, Bray Wyatt would probably be a charismatic cannibal, or a cult leader is what he basically is. Like, imagine, this is the guy that if he walked into a room, the Sawyers and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre would all bow their heads and be frightened of this guy, or Baby and Otis and the whole crew, Captain Spaulding, would, take a knee for Bray Wyatt because he's that character, but he has a physical earnest being a professional wrestler and being an athlete that those people don't have. If Leatherface is chasing me down with a chainsaw, I'm scared. If Bray Wyatt is chasing me down with a chainsaw, I am frightened. And he has his family, whom are all made up of incredibly large, great athletes. Not the least of which is the injured former Brody Lee, whose name what's his name now, Wolfie? Fuck me with a chainsaw.
Luke Harper.
And
you apparently didn't watch the pay-per-view
did he come back?
Ago.
No, I didn't. I was talking to you while I wasn't watching it. Did he come back?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. That's all I care about. But, there's the big Braun Strowman, who is not a very fun wrestler, but a very cool character. We're getting to the meat and potatoes here. Mil Mortis, the man of 1,000 deaths. He's just a fucking undead, awesome, demonic wrestler. So cool. Manteza, who I don't know what his deal is, but his brothers kept him in a cage. He wears a Hannibal Lecter mask, and he looks like, I don't know. He fights like a fucking cruiserweight with the power of a power lifter and the intensity of a pit bull. The most famous wrestler a horror fan might lob onto, or a comic fan, is Finn Balor, who at face value just looks like a handsome, very handsome, with very nice abs, cruiserweight professional wrestler. But in certain situations when he needs to, he dons the guise of the demon. And the demon, his body is all black and inky, like inky death, and he has large tendril-like dreads coming off the top of his head, and a face-painted giant toothy maw. So, there's a lot there for you folks. There's famous ones like Kane and The Undertaker, but that's not the end of the supernatural chicanery if you open your eyes. The thing I like about pro wrestling is it's like any art form, and there's something for everybody, I think, if they look. I was listening to Adam Cole on Jim Ross's podcast, and he mentioned that fans of places like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla are Pro Wrestling Guerrilla fans. They're not wrestling fans. I know from working with Chikara that goes for Chikara fans too. There's people who only watch Chikara. So maybe you don't like jazz, or maybe you don't like pop, but maybe there's some cool metal wrestling out there for you. It's like any other art form. You might not like a dumb slasher, but maybe there's more intellectual, horror film or more subdued horror. Wrestling is an art form, and there are lots of different kinds of art forms. Don't just write it off. And as a horror fan or a Halloween fan, it is ripe with cool things to be entertained by. But I will stop boring you with my love for wrestling. Anyone who's complaining can go fuck themselves with a turnbuckle, one of the hard fucking WWF square light up ones. Happy Halloween, you fucking jerks.